Gus and Travis, we're back.
Yeah,
right?
that's it.
We keep saying that we're gonna come back.
I know,
right? We're like a boxer. It says, "Oh, we're back." You know what I mean? And then we have a fight, and then we train for a while. So now
usually at boxers, what happens at least with us, it's the same thing. Is that you can't get the right fight.
Right. Exactly.
And then promoters fall out. You can never trust promoters.
That's right.
So that's the thing.
Exactly.
This is how we are. The promoters didn't show up with the money. Yes.
Exactly.
And so we trained for no reason, and then we had to go back, into rest period, and then had to retrain.
There you go.
But now we have a subject.
We have a good subject.
Yes.
So this week we're going to talk about Alex Cox.
Yes.
Who is a director who's been around since the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I recently worked with him. I was an associate producer and a casting director on his newest movie, Tombstone-Rashomon.
Right, yes.
So then we both kind of polished up on watching some of his films, and we'll talk
I'd seen one, and then I discovered I'd seen a second film of his. The one I'd seen was Sid and
Nancy.
Yeah, about Sid Vicious. Mm-hmm. And really liked that film when I saw it.
Right.
And in going over his stuff, I realized I'd seen The Winners as well.
And that's his only director for hire film.
Oh, really? Yeah. And it's out of my interest of watching stuff that happens in Vegas and stuff. I saw it on cable.
Right.
And it was a confused picture. Mm-hmm. And then I realized later, reading about him and stuff, that the film was taken away from him.
Right.
The soundtrack was completely changed, and the film was completely recut by Rebecca De Mornay and the producer. So he essentially disowns it.
Right. Yeah. And to my understanding, talking to him, it's, like I said, also something that he was really brought onto. Mm-hmm. It wasn't really something he originated, like all of his other films have been, he's the one that spurred it on. So, but talk about, do you want to try to go chronologically?
Whichever.
We'll talk about Sid and Nancy and what you thought about that when you saw it and why you like it. I haven't seen it since I was a teenager, so I can't comment on that film.
Well, it's the same thing with me. I haven't seen it for, 20, 30 years?
Right. Yeah.
What I remember is I was in Boston, and I'd heard of the film and had no particular interest in it.
Right.
And it was a morning, and I was just walking around, and I had nothing to do. I was waiting for somebody. I had a friend who had gone to do something, and so it would take her 2 hours or something before she'd meet me and pick me up, and pick me up again, and we'd go eat lunch. And so I passed a theater that was showing this movie. It was a basement theater.
Right.
And so I thought, well, this will kill the time. So I went in, and I think it was me and maybe 15 other people in the theater. And this film just happened to us, And it was like I was living with these individuals simply because of the circumstance, being in this empty movie theater and just having this widescreen and these characters who were living lives I never even imagined people lived. The drug scene, the whole thing, and the actors seemed so real in the role that it didn't feel like a put together fictional or fictionalized documentary style story of these people. It felt like I was watching them actually living this experience. And I remember coming out of the theater really slightly shocked, by the thing. And so I was impressed by it in that way,
Right.
And I think ultimately, wasn't Gary Oldman nominated for an Academy Award or something?
I'm not sure about that. I honestly don't know.
But the film was a revelation, I think. The style, the directorial style, and everything. And after that, people began to try to make films like that.
Right.
He opened the door for making films that really pushed it in your face, so to speak. The harsh realities of what we always jokingly call drug, sex, and rock and roll.
Right.
There was a really dark side to that.
Ironically, I can't speak for him, but having conversations with him about all of his movies, it's interesting that he, I think now in retrospect, wishes that it was harsher. Because he feels that, from my memory of what he said, he feels that perhaps it's still too glorified. That it should have really had a darker ending to it. than it had, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
You know,
And I mean, in these times,
right?
you know, that is possible. But probably, and when I saw it, you know, as I said, it was totally shocking to me.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's his most famous movie.
Yes.
In the sense that, like, even a lot of people who have no idea who he is as a director know that film
Right.
and have seen that film.
Yes.
I need to watch it again before I can really, you know, comment on it as a movie. Did you watch Repo Man?
Yes,
Because
I did.
that's his first film.
Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think of Repo Man?
I wasn't crazy about it.
Uh-huh.
I like the abstracted nature of it.
Right.
Up until it got really science fiction.
Mhm.
You know.
At the end.
Yeah. Particularly, but it's what he wanted to do with it.
Right.
And he, reading, you know, again what he talks about, what he says about it, he was making a science fiction movie. The thing is that his style to me is very naturalistic. And so the films that I like best and where he seems to shine best as a director to me is in the naturalistic trappings
Right.
of how he captures moment to moment pictures. And one of the things that bothers me with almost every one of his films is the endings, because they seem so random. Which is nice. I mean, I'm saying it in the best way.
Right.
They come off as existential. That when he knots things up, or he goes for a larger ending, for instance, or he goes for melodrama, I get disappointed.
Gotcha.
You see what I'm
Gotcha.
saying? Like that.
Yeah, you gotta see. You'll have to see Three Businessmen now,
Yeah,
which I'll
okay.
talk about a little bit. But talk about the random endings. You'll have to see that one. I watched Repo Man again. I saw Repo Man when I was a teen. I watched it again, and I don't think that it completely works as a film, but I love the youthful energy of it. The film has just an energy and that carries it. And some of just the unique moments, the conversations amongst the Repo Men
Right,
drivers,
yes.
Harry Dean and all of them, their philosophy is really, I think, the reason that the movie is a cult film.
Yeah.
Is those lines and that
There's
philosophy.
I can see why it's a cult film. Did you know yesterday was Harry Dean Stanton's 90th birthday?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, I haven't seen him in stuff recently, and I understand. I mean, when you're 90 years old,
Right.
you want to take it easy. Yeah.
Yeah, Alex has some interesting stories about him and that cast, but again, I can't speak for him. But there's a commentary track on the DVD, and I'm sure that he tells some of them on that.
Probably,
on
okay.
that.
It's also was good to see the young Emilio Estevez,
Right.
you know, play. The thing, as you're talking about the exchanges and stuff, that to me is what made the picture. At
Right.
times I laughed out loud. I was watching the film by myself, and there were times when I was watching it and I laughed out loud at just the exchanges, because again with his films, they don't feel like dialogue.
Right.
It feels like just these offbeat, off-center people
Yeah.
talking to each other in these off-center ways, yeah. And that's what makes the films work so well for me, is that, and then that people just do things for no discernible reason except they are who they are. So you have guys walking in, robbing places, and then meeting him and saying hi, talking to him, and then leaving again and saying, we got to go off onto crime.
Right,
Some more,
yeah.
you know, things like
Yeah, that stuff is really good. The one scene that I really like in that film is when all those people get shot up in the liquor store.
Yes.
Because to me, when I was watching it recently, I thought the best comedies to me have real consequences, and that scene all of a sudden grounds the film, and it just adds a really interesting quality that this disturbing violent
Yes,
scene
absolutely.
in the middle of a very sort of light offbeat
Yeah.
film.
And that's why the ending bothered me.
Right, because it was so
it takes away from that. It suddenly lifts it off the ground.
Right.
Literally.
Right.
You know, like that, where he anchors the film so well after taking you through the hijinks of what these guys were about.
Right.
That there are real consequences
Right.
to indulging yourself in that way.
So to go off of that and what you said about naturalism in his work, I have to ask you about the one that I let you borrow that I think is his most natural film, which is Highway Patrolman.
That's my favorite.
It's so
Far
good.
and away, it's my favorite.
Right.
I mean, I was just absorbed by that. I went looking online to buy a copy of it.
Right.
And all these films are not cheap. I mean, because they're just not readily available.
Right.
You know, for used copies, they want $50. You know,
it's
like
great,
that.
isn't it?
But
it just
I
hits
love
you
that film. That's
so hard.
That far and away, as I said, was my favorite. And I don't think he's gotten near that in other pictures. There are flavorings of it in Searchers 2.0.
Yeah.
The very first part of that, Searchers 2.0, does have that random feel again. It almost seems like it takes place in the same essential locations, you know, the desert, the southwestern desert. But the thing is, beat by beat, moment by moment, Highway Patrolman really, really absorbs you. The acting is sensational because it's so naturalistic. It felt neorealist, because it felt like the people were amateurs. Yeah,
well, it feels to me like a Bresson movie.
Yeah,
is what it feels. It's like his pickpocket or whatever, you know.
Because it just seems like they behave so naturally. I read about some of them, and they are actors. Their acting is so of a piece that it really feels, and it doesn't feel like acting. It just feels like behavior, natural behavior that's occurring. And the other thing about it is that when beat by beat, the rhythms, you know, of the film itself has the rhythms of life. It feels that way, you know. I like his direction a lot because he really has, you know, he doesn't do anything showy, you know.
No, he's not about that.
No, at all. I love the camera work because so much of it is handheld. And it just feels, you know, it just follows.
Well, that film was when he really started, because I think he told me that movie was when he really started to get interested in the more handheld, natural, long takes thing. And that movie has some great long takes. When they run into that accident on the streets, that it's got some really disturbing scenes in
very
it.
much.
And it really captures the madness of corruption, not just in Mexico, but anywhere.
And it's not even a madness, it's the logic of it.
Right,
really.
Well, that's true.
Because you see the circumstances they live in and what they're up against. That you'd have to be a fool not to, in some way, you know, get involved with it.
Did you think that film ended well?
Again, I think it ended better than all of his others.
Right.
But still, the whole Maribel plot smacked of a plot.
Right.
Yeah.
You know where I would have ended that film? I know it's going to sound really random, but I thought a great ending for it would have been when he goes to kill the rabid dog. And I just would have had him shoot this dog and then just walk away. Well, and that would have been a very just odd ending, but I think it would have fit.
You could have even just had him going to it without it, before he kills the dog, and you could stop it there.
Right.
You know? One of the things I really liked in the film was the moment when, you know, because Cox sets it up very well. He passes the kids with the iguanas, and then later he passes them again, and and he arrests them. He doesn't arrest them, but he takes them to school. And the kids just say, I mean, again, the dialogue is wonderful because he says to the kids, "Why aren't you in school?" And they say, "Because we don't like it." He says, "You know, there's a law against selling stuff on the thing," and they say, "So what?" And then he says something, "You need a license." So you know what? Come with me. I'm going to take you to school. And they kind of, all right, because the kids. He takes them to school.
It's funny.
And then at the very end, when he's no longer the higher thing, he passes them, and of course there they are again. You know? So it's as much as things change, they remain the same.
Right. Yeah. He has a instinct, and this goes back to his instincts as a filmmaker. Like you said, his strength is in that naturalism, but his instincts always lead him to break it, to add some kind of element that even in Highway Patrolman, there's one part where he's seeing a therapist. I don't know if you remember this part, where there's a surreal moment with that. And I think that Alex is in all of his movies. There's some kind of element.
Well, there's a moment when his father shows up, and the father's dead. He is shot. And he's just sitting, waiting for help, and the father comes up and he talks to his father, and the father walks away. And
to me, he, having spoken with him, I know that Buñuel is a really big influence on his work.
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
And I can see elements of Buñuel, and especially in this one that I watched last night, Three Businessmen. I think it's his most Buñuelian film.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. It's also an interesting movie because it's very different than his other films. Conversation is important in all of his movies, but this one is pure conversation. It's two businessmen at first. I won't say that where the third comes in, but two businessmen in Liverpool who are trying to meet in a hotel and are trying to find a place to eat. And like a film like Before Sunrise or Before Sunset, the movie literally follows them from beginning to end, conversing on the streets as they walk in restaurants and bars and trains, cars, and it's just this long conversation. And I didn't like it because it's more a movie about ideas, and it's them spewing all of this philosophy, and it didn't. I wanted something more narrative out of it, but you might find it interesting, and it has an interesting twist at the end of the movie. The other one that I think you should see, that's my second favorite of his film, because my favorite is now Highway Patrolman, just like you, is Walker with Ed Harris. Because I think that one, I have seen it. Oh yeah, seen it a couple times. That's a great movie.
You have a copy?
I don't. Otherwise, I would have given it to you. But it's. I'll try to track it down, because that to me is really also a very amazing piece of work. What he does with that and showing American imperialism, but again, he has these moments where he breaks the fourth wall. He has these people in a period reading Time magazine or drinking Coca-Cola, and he likes to do that kind of stuff. I read
about that because I was trying to find a copy. Right. And I read all about the anachronisms, and he has a long thing on his website, and I recommend people go to his website. Just put up Alex Cox, and his website address will come up. Yeah. And he goes into a long discussion interview. He reprints an interview that somebody did asking about the anachronisms of Walker. All his films, he has stuff on that. As I watched his film, first of all, I should say my least favorite of the ones I've watched was Revenger's Tragedy. Yeah, and the reason for that is because I didn't know Revenger's Tragedy, but I know the one that Thomas Kidd wrote. I think it's called A Revenge Play. Okay. That is a variation on that, which was the reason I was interested or found out about it, was that I was told it was a forerunner to Hamlet. Right. And
this is to some degree too.
The Spanish Tragedy is what Thomas Kidd's play is called. And this is like that. And the thing that I felt didn't work at all for me was conflating modern speech with the classical style speech of the original work. And then moving it, and he moved around a lot of events, and it just seemed chaotic and totally away from his own style. But as I watched this film, because now I've picked up on his style, one of the things I was thinking, and I thought, he would have been the perfect director, I think, and this is just my opinion, for Inherent Vice. Oh.
I can see that. I can definitely see that.
I think he's more spiritually and intellectually in tune to that than Paul Anderson, who directed it.
And he's more naturally offbeat than Paul Anderson is.
The other person I thought he should, again, this is wishful thinking stuff. If I had a magic wand, I would have him do Barry Gifford adaptations.
Oh yeah, because he could do Portrait Peak like no one else,
and
or one of the Sailor,
or even Wild at Heart. Because he seems so in tune with that. I thought he'd be the perfect director. If I was a producer, I would, and I had the money, I'd bring them together.
Right. Oh yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
But looking at the works, you want to talk about Searchers?
Yeah, which I haven't seen.
You haven't seen
last night I had a choice to get ready for this. I had a choice. Watch something that you have seen. I figured I'd cover something you weren't going to be able to. So tell me about Searchers 2.0.
Well, the thing with Searchers,
which is one of his to give some background, it's one of his recent films. Yeah. And Corman produced it.
You almost have to be a cinephile to really, really enjoy it. There's so much. Even the whole direction of the film, it's a road picture, and they go on the road, Because
they're looking. It's these kid actors who are grown up, and they're
Yeah.
looking for this cowboy figure, right?
this director,
Oh,
who
director, okay.
well, not a director, a writer, screenwriter, who ostensibly abused them and I don't mean sexually abused them, but treated them badly on a set, and literally they're going to kick his ass is what they want to do, and so it's their adventures on the road, and it's not all that dissimilar without the straight through line of Highway Patrolman, in the sense that they're on the road and random things happen and they respond to it, and they keep going and they keep going and they keep going until they get to the end. I kept looking for the Searchers connection, because he has it in the title, and it's sort of there if you know the movie The Searchers.
Right.
And there's a lot of reference to a lot of movies, classic movies, that unless you really know the references, it's essentially falls flat. You know, like that. But still, the actors are terrific, and I would say up until close to the end, I mean, 10 minutes away from the end of the film, that it's my second favorite.
Really?
Yeah.
So you
of the
don't, like
ones
the way,
I've
you don't
seen.
like the way it concludes.
I don't like the ending. That's what I'm saying. You know, endings are always difficult for everybody.
Right.
And for my response to his films, much as I like them, I wish he wouldn't end them the ways he did. And like you, he could stop the picture before that ending. Yeah, and it would be it would absolutely work. I mean,
And I don't feel that way about all of his movies,
Yeah.
but a couple of them for sure.
But it's not that he doesn't have an ending. It's just that he goes on beyond the ending. For my feeling about
Yeah,
it.
yeah, that's interesting. No, I want to watch that one. It's interesting that you bring up the fact that it's related to The Searchers, and then only a cinephile could really say that, or maybe even appreciate the movie. Period. Because in working with him, he's mentioned in conversation, should we even call this movie Tombstone-Rashomon, his new movie? Not because it's a bad title, but does anyone in this day and age know what Rashomon means?
Right?
Because almost everyone on set, what is Rashomon?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's one of the best movies ever made. But of course, no one remembers that. And then I think the same thing with Searchers 2.0 is when that came out, I'm sure that many people were like, well, what is Searchers? Right? You know, they don't even have the reference to, they go, well, this is the sequel or whatever, some kind of related thing to Searchers, but what is Searchers?
Because I asked you that about when you
when you read the script.
Rashomon, Tombstone-Rashomon, because I said, well, people really know that reference. So he clearly was questioning it as well, and obviously people don't, because you said people kept coming up and asking, what is Rashomon? So what did I watch? I'm trying to see if we skipped any.
Repo Man. You watched Sid and Nancy. We talked about that recently. Highway Patrolman.
Right.
I did not give you a copy of Straight to Hell.
No, but I'm saying what I watched, which was
and Searchers 2.0, Revenger's Tragedy.
Yeah, we
and
have all in. Okay.
Revenger's Tragedy, I agree with you. But there's parts of it I like, and there's performances I like in it. I actually really like Christopher Eccleston in the film.
And Derek Jacobi.
Yeah.
He's interesting. It was a different role for him.
Right.
I mean, it's different in the sense that you don't see him in contemporary things that much. I showed his Hamlet at one point in school when I was teaching theater, and you see him in the classic things,
right,
like that.
It was interesting talking to Alex about the movies that he did not end up making. Some as wild as
that's something you should talk about.
This movie that, because we would just talk in the car on the way to set and during pre-production, and one of the wildest is that at some point, and I think I'm getting this right, Francis Ford Coppola, through Zoetrope, was going to produce a superhero movie, Doctor Strange, which is now being made, with Alex directing and Nicolas Cage as Doctor Strange. Now, me being a Nicolas Cage fan, when I heard that, I thought this is fantasy movie making for Alex to direct that in the 80s with Nicolas Cage. Also, the most famous one that he almost directed was Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas. And he wrote the script with his wife, Todd, and he said that he was even the one that, he was with the producers when they cast Johnny Depp and Benicio del Toro. And then I believe what he said is they went for a bigger budget, and when they went for a bigger budget, they dropped him.
Because he talks.
And then he had to fight for they both had to fight to get the credit on it. So
he said him and Terry Gilliam didn't see eye to eye.
And that's another one that I think that, just like Inherent Vice, he would have been an interesting director because he wouldn't have pushed it so hard. There was no subtlety in Gilliam's version,
not at all, no.
And I think in his version there would have been a real interesting offbeat subtlety.
Well, the thing is, I mean, for him, what he has is that quality where what other people pushes as offbeat to him isn't the norm.
Right.
And that's why he doesn't push it. Yes,
right.
That's why.
Exactly. What I like most about Alex before and after working with him is that, unlike a lot of filmmakers from his generation, he never stopped making movies.
No.
He sort of fell out with the studios after Walker. Supposedly ended up on a sort of, what would you call it, blacklist.
Mm-hmm.
Don't give this guy lots of money, basically. But a lot of filmmakers, not to name any names, but they seem to not be able to get a project off the ground because they're waiting for millions of dollars to land in their lap. And Alex, since Walker, has continued to produce these movies. Even something like a couple years ago, I haven't seen it yet, but he did this movie, Build a Galactic Hero, with some of his students. And then even with Tombstone-Rashomon. So I really admire that because I feel like real filmmakers don't use money as an excuse to stop them.
Right.
So I like that. I also like, one thing I find really interesting is, to me, like someone like Herzog, who doesn't feel to me like a German filmmaker. Being German or Bavarian may infuse all of his work. Like that, Alex Cox does not feel like a British filmmaker.
No,
I mean, he transcends his nationality over and over again. Highway Patrolman feels like it was made by a Mexican filmmaker.
If anything, he feels more like a Western filmmaker. Western, he loves the American Western.
Right.
When I say Western, I mean Southwestern grunge filmmaker.
Totally.
Like that. And that's one of the things that I noticed when I watched his films. I thought to myself, I said, I understand why this man's work is not popular and why it will never be popular. I mean, in the large Hollywood sense of the word.
Right.
There is no aspect of glamour to any of his films at all.
Right.
And Hollywood has conditioned the world to want and be hungry for a certain kind of glamour, if it's in the lighting, beyond the stars or whatever, and certain aspects. I mean, even in his own interviews, he said, whenever he submits a script, and one of the things he said that I found interesting, which is true because most people don't talk about it, is he said he's written about 50 scripts that haven't been produced.
Right.
And he says what people keep telling him is that there are no likable characters in his stories. Funny. And he says people keep bringing that up.
Right.
And he doesn't see that as a criteria that's necessary for telling a story on film.
Right.
And I understand what he's talking about, but I understand that that is exactly the reason why he won't ever be, to my mind, a popular filmmaker, because he won't please that crowd. And that's why I love it, of course, because the writers I like, I mean, I see him closer to, like I said, people like Barry Gifford, who I think are excellent writers, but they never have best-selling books.
Right.
For the very same reason.
Right.
I have a whole shelf of them here.
Now that you say that, I'm going to buy a copy of Portrait Peak and send it to him. I'm going to mail it to him because I think that he might be one of the only directors that could get it.
And so.
And then I'll bang on Barry Gifford's door and say, "This is who you need."
Because Barry, as I said, I have a whole shelf of these people.
Right.
And I love their work, and I know, why they're not bestsellers. But I'm happy they're working because there's enough people like me that keep them in the business, so to speak, whether they be writers or filmmakers. And that's why I like his stuff, because it's so distinctly individual to him. So tell about working with him. You worked with him.
Yeah, well, we worked pretty intensely together for the shoot and before the shoot.
Well, tell how you met him, because that I think is interesting, because it speaks to how he connects with people.
I found out about Tombstone-Rashomon through a film.
But you're going to tell it.
Right. Well, I'll tell you until then. I found out about Tombstone-Rashomon through a film comment article I think they had a little blurb. He used to write a blog
Yes,
for
I
them,
remember
a
that, yeah.
little, and unfortunately, it looks like it's gone now, which sucks because it was nice. But anyway, they said that he was making this new movie, Tombstone-Rashomon, and I think they mentioned that it was being shot in Arizona, which is what triggered it for me. And I thought, okay, well, I have to try to find him. Found his website, found the email associated, and just wrote him and said, hey, Alex, I don't know if you're still doing this. I don't know if you're shooting it in Arizona, but I want to be a part of it. Any way that I can, I want to be a part of it. And he sort of wrote back and said, well, you know, this is a lower budget production. It's not going to be, you know, there's not going to be any big bucks associated with that. And I said, look, I don't care because of two reasons. One, you're Alex Cox. Two, you're shooting in Arizona, and I want to be involved in great shit that's being done in Arizona. So he was really open to it, and we met. And like I said, they brought me on as a casting director, and I worked with him with casting, which was an interesting process because I always cast my own films, and here you are, you know, selecting actors to audition and seeing someone else's standards, right? You know, that which of course don't always line up to yours. Some of them do, some of them don't. And Alex definitely sees things in actors that I didn't see in the auditions, and I learned about that. One of the actors that I hated his audition. I hated this person. I said, you know, I told Alex when he selected it, I said, I must voice my opinion. I really do not think we should cast this person, okay? I don't know what Alex saw, right? But this was one of the best actors on the set when we made the film.
Wow.
And he had a smaller role, but I found myself watching him in every scene where he was in an ensemble. My eyes would go to him. And I thought, what did Alex see that I was missing, right? So that's an interesting lesson that I was wrong about that one. I feel like he has a tendency sometimes to choose, because of that offbeat intuition, I think he has a tendency to choose people who are a little bit more over the top, I'd say, than the characters that I would choose, right? And I saw that consistently. That I would maybe be geared to choose someone that was a little bit more minimal than him. But he loves actors. He once said, a director's dream is a room full of actors. And to me, I go, that sounds like director's nightmare. My nightmare. So we just differ when it comes to that. But he's one of those directors. Right. He's one of those directors that has a true love of actors. And he's just, what's interesting about him on set too, as we continue to work together, is he has an incredible energy. I can't remember how old Alex is.
He's 53.
Okay. You wouldn't know it. It feels like a 30-year-old directing. It feels like he's doing his first film, Repo Man, because he's moving around the set with just such an incredible drive, right? And mostly a joyful drive. You know what I mean? He's bouncing around.
No, he's 62. I'm sorry.
Right. So he's even. I thought he was even older than that.
I wrote it down. That's why I know.
And so it was just interesting to see that. And we're shooting fast, very fast.
I know, yeah.
And I like that he shoots fast. He knows what he wants. He doesn't get a lot of coverage, which I think is the way to go. But he's able to move inspire both the cast and crew by just this really unstoppable energy that he's got. And so I liked that a lot.
Well, to interrupt a minute, he said he shot, I think, Searches in 15 days.
Right.
Yeah.
He has a funny story about that, because I guess the production schedule was originally 14 days, and that, Roger Corman came on as a producer, and that Roger Corman said something to the effect of, I think that to make a good movie, you need 15 days. So they added 1 day to the schedule, which I thought was very humorous.
And he was saying that one of the things about that, when you were talking about him liking actors, he said, it's hard on the actor because they have to learn so many pages. And
Right.
he said it was doubly hard on these actors because they had to drive as well. Because he was explaining that under normal circumstances, so that the actors aren't distracted with driving, they would tow the car. They would have a tow situation where they would tow the car, the actors would pretend to drive while they had, so they can concentrate on their acting. And he said it's also a safety consideration.
Yeah, exactly.
And he
You
said
don't want them
that
distracted.
because of the limitations of the budget, and he said these happen to be good drivers, these actors happen to be good drivers, that he was able to do both.
Right.
And that's why he was able to get it in 15 days.
It's crazy.
Yes.
But I don't think he wants me to tell people how many days we shot Tombstone-Rashomon in. But let's just say it was fast. It was very
when
fast.
the film is completed and
Right.
everything and out, then you can tell the story. But you spent a lot of time one-on-one with him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like I said, we just talked about his entire career, anecdotes from his career, and I don't really feel comfortable sharing, because I feel like there's a confidence there. But that was one of the most valuable experiences I've ever had, is to be able to make a drive to Old Tucson every day and just talk about not only his films, but every night we screened Westerns. I brought these Westerns and we watched Bedecker and we watched Hawks and Valdez is Coming and all of these different films, and sometimes we got in arguments about them. We argued about Hawks and Rio Bravo and how he thought it should be 30 minutes shorter, and all kinds of stuff. But there's, he knows films incredibly well, and he really doesn't have a pompous ego about anything. So it was great to be able to share that experience with him.
Well, in Searchers 2.0, there are references to Bedecker, and a lot of people, that's why I said you had to be a cinemaphile to understand some of what he was talking about. But the thing is, one of the things that I find interesting about him is that he's not just, narrowly a filmmaker, a very good filmmaker, say by our standards, but he's also a writer. And as you mentioned, he wrote those articles. He's written several books because he's a film historian as well. And he wrote one like 10,000 Ways to Die. It's about the Western because that's his favorite genre.
Yeah.
And then
he wrote a book about the JFK conspiracy. He's written a lot of different stuff.
And he teaches filmmaking, which I think is wonderful. So that he's completely all around. He has opinions on everything, and they informed opinions. They're not just I have an opinion, so I'm going to spell it out. And so the articles that you said he used to write for Film Comment. I'm not sure if it's because he's too busy to continue writing them, because
it's Film Comment.
Or they said no more because
I don't know for sure what the deal is, but when they changed the editor, that's when they went away.
Oh, I see. Because he seems so busy
Right.
that I wonder, where does he get time to do all of this stuff? But he really does use his time very well for anybody who's interested in film. And so I think the reason we're even talking about this and doing a Gus and Travis talk about this filmmaker, is because he's so on the scene that I'd like to really encourage people to investigate his work, because I think he deserves it, and I think you'll be rewarded by seeing.
Well, especially because most people just see Sid and Nancy or Repo Man, and this is a filmography that's really worth digging into. And honestly, I'm not done digging, because I want to see. I want to see his documentary about Kurosawa.
Right.
I need to watch Straight to Hell again. There's still these gems. Searchers.
I have a lot of them I haven't seen either. As I was watching films, what I kept wishing was that I discovered them, I'd seen them, and they were, I would have gone after them when I was teaching, because I would like to have played them in my class.
Right. Oh yeah. That'd be
great. And that isn't going to happen anymore.
Yeah.
But because it would at least expand his audience a little bit.
Well, especially you could have shown Highway Patrolman in your third world cinema class.
Oh sure. Oh absolutely.
And it would have been perfect.
Yeah. Perfect. Yeah.
But he's got, having spoken to him, Alex has got a lot, not just Tombstone-Rashomon, which I think is going to be really good, but he's got a lot more interesting projects. Like he says, he's got all these scripts that he hasn't done, and his career is just as interesting now as I think it was when he began. So
Probably
there's some
even more
exciting,
interesting because he doesn't have the suits looking
Right.
over
Oh, yeah.
his shoulder.
And he's seasoned. He's
Yeah.
seasoned, but he's still original and fresh. He hasn't fallen into any sort of pattern. So, anyway, it'll be fun to see what he does next.
And then when you get more information on Tombstone-Rashomon, we'll share it with
Yes.
you know,
Or after
everybody.
we see it,
Or after we
we
see
can
it,
do
yes,
a commentary
yes.
on it.
Okay.
Cool. Well, we don't know when we'll be back, so no promises. when the money comes, you know what I
Yes,
mean. When the
yes.
right promoter comes and the right fight.
And then you're
We'll be
looking
back.
to be going away for a while. You're
Yes.
going to be gone for a while, so maybe we'll get one more in
Before we
you
go.
Yeah, because
That
you'll be
sounds
gone
good.
for how many months?
Like 3 months
Wow,
to
yeah.
Mississippi
Yeah.
and Texas, and then we're making a few movies at the end of this year.
And you may as well make a pitch now for Porches, which we'll be showing
Oh, yeah.
at 10 Cinema.
Our new film is going to be premiering in Mississippi September 3rd and then showing in Arizona September 23rd through the 29th, a week-long run at Pollock Tempe Cinemas. So we got that, and then, like I said, we're producing a few more films.
Yes.
And Durant's is going to be our last film with Tom Sizemore, is going to be on Amazon and iTunes next month.
Okay.
So anyway,
good.
some good stuff coming.
Yeah, a lot of things happening.
Take care. Check out some Alex Cox movies while you're at it.
Okay, bye.